concern is the abolition or dissolving of the personal property tax. We almost have to have a law passed to protect the township. As far as if they ban personal property tax, there's a lot of incentive here to not do this. Would you agree? Yes. But we're not voting on this, but I don't know what you feel about this, but well, I mean, this is quite as serious, I don't think, as the banning of personal property altogether. So we've got to, in addition to all this other stuff here, we also have to look at the possibility of this personal property tax being eliminated. Or if you guys come up with some other ideas, you can let us know. Yeah, Kevin.
If I might offer a comment on that, this has been not such a simple issue to get to the bottom of about the taxation. The personal property tax is in real jeopardy. Of course, they don't pay real estate taxes except maybe on a substation or a few things like that. If you ask Great Lakes Wind whether or not they would agree to some kind of payment in lieu of taxes arrangement, which is what you're really talking about, a pilot program, Great Lakes Wind position in other townships, maybe it's changed tonight, is that would be illegal. It would be tantamount to bribery.
Right.
But UV Wind in the same townships is offering a pilot arrangement.
Yeah.
So my advice to you is to seek your own counsel on that. The attorneys.
I've tried to look at impact fee, tried to look at sales, a tax, like we see on our electric bill.
Licensing is another way to do it.
Can't do that.
Yeah,
Can't do that.
Definitely
So
seek your own.
We need a law. We actually need a law of some sort.
In Ohio, they've actually just waived all the taxes on green energy. And my biggest fear actually is that if the production tax credit gets canceled at the end of this year, which is a bounty paid per kilowatt hour produced from our tax money, that if that is canceled, typically in the years there's no production tax credit, nobody builds any turbines. Just historically that's been the case. If that production tax credit is killed, then I would see a stronger push yet by developers across the country to be absolved from any other taxes just to remain viable. So there's a ton of risk there.
Yeah. The other thing I did today is I called the county clerk, I guess it is, and I asked for the election results from 2006. Because I was kind of curious to see whether or not what governor we voted for back then, and all three townships voted for DeVos, and if he would have won, we probably wouldn't have to be. But so it looks like the rest of the state wants wind power if we don't. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. If you want to take a look at this, I think they thought I was crazy at the clerk's office. You got any questions? We talked about some.
Yeah, we talked about another. We was talking about decommissioning of the towers, the foundation. In most instances, you guys go down approximately 3 feet and restore. Is there any reason we don't take the whole foundation out, other than cost?
I think it's just a factor of cost, and there's never been any real benefit perceived of doing that, since the farmland's restored, on the surface, and there's no impact above that after that time. So
How big a foundation do we look at totally? I mean, how big is the chunk of concrete?
How big?
How deep? Yeah,
Oh,
how
how
deep?
deep?
Yeah.
Could be 9 feet.
So basically, you're looking at, you won't take it out virtually because of cost. So if someone wants to build there someday, 100 years down the road, they're gonna run into a chunk of concrete that someone else will have to pay to remove. Is that-
I've never looked into the history of it, but I'm sure cost is part of it.
Well, I'm sure, okay.
Have there been, I'm sorry, Jim. Have there been studies completed on the environment effects of the bats? Are those completed as yet?
They haven't been completed as of yet, they're taking place. We have 3 towers up, it's taking those studies. And I'm sure the other companies have bat recording stuff on their towers also, but I don't know that for sure. But all 3 of ours do.
When do you expect those to be completed?
I don't know what the scheduled time is for that for sure, the completion time. You have to take it different times of the year, so. We have a third party doing that.
Where do you have the towers for that, Joe?
Where?
Yeah.
There's one on Adrian Deerfield and Rogers Highway. There's one on Horton and New Roth, and then the one on Thompson.
So where the rear bats are, we have real close to.
And then we had one on, we had a ground unit on, just off Beamer Highway.
Okay.
And Beamer Highway and Lower,
Right.
earlier, before we had the other 2 towers up.
Because that would be the vicinity of the bats.
Well,
Right.
the river area, yes.
Right, exactly, okay.
Yep.
I haven't been involved in them studies, but I guess just to add, they've been coordinated and there's been meetings with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on the protocols that would be used for the bat monitoring, and they're aware of the project area and the plans going forward on that, so it's not something that's just done in a, privately. I mean, the various regulatory agencies are involved with the test protocols and the results, so.
No, still back to the safety issue. I think that when we talk about our departments, and we have a good record with our rescue people and stuff, and then you say that there's only need an ambulance, I got to differ with somebody about that, because there's so many things can happen out there that they would need to have those rescue people that we have available. And so that's one of the major things that I think our township should look at when we're talking about the safety issues of what you have out there and the buildings of them and working on them and things like that. I think it's something we should look into a little bit further. I just can't believe that somebody wants to take that responsibility of the company and say, we don't need you people. I think we should do something into that.
Just a comment on that. I was not an anti-windmill guy, and I'm not an anti-windmill guy. These guys come to my neighborhood and ask me, and I ask them some questions like this, and they give the answers they're giving. It's shocking. I'm sitting here with my mouth open. What about the emergency issue? We'll take care of it. We'll just take care of it. We're gonna lower the guy down ourselves, just be at the bottom. Do you think there'd be some liability on the township, if the township is ill-prepared to handle a rescue in that? I think if I fell off it, my wife might come after you. Or if I was hurt up there and you couldn't get to me because the township didn't plan, there would be some issues. Keep in mind, when these wind turbine developers come to town, they aren't gonna offer you, this is gonna be fantastic for your community. They're gonna offer you a couple carrots and say, these couple carrots would be good for your community, and here's the grid we'd like to lay on your neighborhood. The grid works best for us because our power lines will work best. They'll put those windmills as close as they possibly can to each other, so that they don't interfere with each other, irregardless of the houses below them. So I'm glad you're asking the right questions. I'm really glad to see, that you're thoroughly into it already. But the emergency issue is a serious issue, And not only the emergency for the gentleman that's hurt up inside the tower, but what about life flight? Has anyone considered life flight? I saw a life flight fly by today, and I was working with a lady's house, and she had some comments about the windmills, and said, oh, what's your opinion on the windmill? I saw your name was in the paper. And I said, oh, I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you. I think they're great, but, you know, it is a serious issue. People aren't asking the right questions. She says, well, just not in your backyard, though, right? I said, you're damn right. Not in my backyard, not that close. But farther away, I won't have a problem with it. But just then, life flight goes zipping by at about 250 feet off the ground because the cloud deck was so low. What's going to happen when they're 500 and some feet in the air wind turbines? Those guys are going to want a clearance above those 200-300 feet. On a day like today, they couldn't fly. Could not fly through this area. I'm sure they'll be chiming in at one point too. So, but I really appreciate it. You're really big and as deep as you are. It sounds like you're really informed already. Appreciate it.
I had one question for John with the storm issue that we've been seeing. What's the wind capacity of the turbines before damage starts in case of a tornado? How strong are these?
The design?
Yeah.
The
Is it
survival
80
wind
miles an
speeds?
hour, or is there-
Pardon?
Is there a mile that's safe for them before destruction happens?
Well, every turbine has a different rating on it. It's probably in some of the documentation that you have there. It sounds like somebody gave you a spec sheet maybe on the V100. I'm not sure what the survival wind speed is on that unit, but we can certainly provide it.
Jim, I'd like to comment to the safety issues. You got cell towers in the area, and so on. I mean, does Madison Township, for instance, the radio station or the TV station, suppose one of those people fell off that 600-foot tower. How is that covered? I mean, you got cell towers, there's one over here in Briggs's and stuff. Did, when you issued that permit, what kind of consideration did you give for safety there?
Well, I think, I'm not,
But we will, I talked to the fire department, and the people that work with these turbines all the time will come down and work with the fire department.
that's what we talked to the chief the other night, and I asked him, I said, what are you gonna need? As far as training or whatever, and then, if we realize that they may need some training, and so that's one of the things we're gonna put in the ordinance is that, that we want them to be trained, we want them to be confident, and we want them to be involved. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I attended a lot of conferences, wind conferences, and they list the advantages and disadvantages. And one of the advantages always was that it was the low maintenance on fire departments and a very low expense. Whether there's not much happens, I mean, I'm not a fireman.
Right, well, we don't expect much to happen, but, we just trying to cover all our bases. And, if someone is hanging from one, God forbid, we want to be able to, our firemen want to be competent.
I would guess that during construction period, I'm sure there's more risk, but I would think once they're up from what I've
Yeah, that's what
observed.
I'm saying, yeah, once they're up, they're probably not an issue.
I've been there to see the people who went up and down them. I've been inside one of them. I've asked to go up into one of them because I wanted to see, and they would not let me go without certain kind of training. I'd have my blood pressure checked, all kinds of things that had to be done before I could qualify to go up it. They told me if I could go to one that has an elevator into it, but the one I wanted to go up that particular day, I was not allowed to go up it. There's a harness, there's 3 hatches. You have to hook the hook on. The minute your hook comes unhooked, the alarm goes off. They do a tremendous amount, the employees go through a tremendous safety thing. That when you go beyond each stage, there's a rest area. You can't go to the next one until the hatch is closed behind you. So if you fell, you would not, you're not going to fall the full distance. And there's 3 of them. The one that I was at, there was 3 of those.
In the back here.